Good morning and welcome everyone to the Greenpeace press conference at the Berliner Ensemble. Thank you for coming all, press and media, and thanks for your interest in the Antarctic Ocean. And also welcome to everyone online as we will live broadcast this on our Greenpeace Germany Facebook page. Guten Morgen und ein herzliches Willkommen. Wie in der Einladung angekündigt, werden wir diese Pressekonferenz auf Englisch durchführen. Wir stehen aber dann im Nachhinein für Fragen zur Verfügung und werden eben Teile davon übersetzen. Within the next 40 minutes, we will learn more about the first findings of the Greenpeace expedition to the Antarctic Ocean this January. So, many thanks to our experts on the podium for being here today. And to my right, let me introduce, left, let me introduce Dr. Sandra Schöttner. She holds a PhD in deep sea microbiology and joined the Antarctic expedition as a scientist. Sandra will introduce the campaign and talk about Greenpeace's aims. Dr. Susanne Lockhart is a benthic ecologist and Antarctic expert with the California Academy of Sciences. Ms. Lockhart will tell us about the first findings of the collected underwater footage and have a focus on the so-called vulnerable marine ecosystems, VMEs. Then we have another special guest from Spain, actor and Oscar winner Javier Bardem.
I'm not an expert on anything, but I was there.
But you joined the Greenpeace expedition, yes, together with his brother Carlos and the filmmaker Álvaro Longoria. And they are producing a documentary telling the story of the strive to gain the largest sanctuary worldwide. So after Mrs. Lockhart's part, we will watch a 10-minute preview of the film in the making, and then Mr. Bardem will tell us about his experiences in the Southern Ocean. Following the presentation, all three are looking forward to answer your questions. This is, as a matter of course, all about the sanctuary and everything related to it. Please do not ask any questions about their private lives. We have until 10:45 for the questions, or maybe a few minutes more now. And after that, Susanne Lockhart and Sandra Schöttner will be available for further interviews. So now let me hand over to Sandra. So why is it so important, this Antarctic sanctuary? Why did you go down there?
For a very, very specific and very important reason. Almost half of our planet is covered by vast oceans beyond national jurisdiction. This means international waters, and these waters are our common heritage. We have a collective responsibility to protect them, because marine life is already suffering greatly from the impacts of climate change, oil and gas extraction, pollution with plastic and persistent organic pollutants, and last but not least, industrial overfishing, just to name a few. According to scientists, at least 30% of our oceans should be set aside as so-called sanctuaries, areas that are protected from direct human impact and which provide the resilience and the relief for marine ecosystems to recover. The benefits of these ocean sanctuaries would be undoubtedly global. However, less than 1% of international waters are currently under protection. That is why we need a global effort advocating for ocean sanctuaries. For Greenpeace, and for all of us sitting here, this journey begins in the Antarctic, also international waters, with the creation of the largest ocean sanctuary known to date in the Weddell Sea, one of the most and very pristine areas left on this planet. And actually the good news is, I don't know how many of you know that already, the good news is there is, among others, already a proposal for such a sanctuary on the table. It was initiated by the German government and submitted by the EU Commission to the Antarctic Commission called CAMLAR. And it covers an area of about 1.8 million square kilometers. That's about 5 times the size of Germany. Such a Weddellsea sanctuary would not only mean a safe haven for penguins, whales, seals, and many others, but also for marine life underwater, including krill, which is a tiny shrimp at the very center of the Antarctic marine food web. Now, the international community just needs to agree on that sanctuary, and preferably already this year in October, when the Kamler Commission will meet again. But this is not an easy task at all, and that's why Greenpeace has launched a global campaign urging international leaders to cooperate on protecting the Antarctic Ocean. So since the beginning of the year, our ship Arctic Sunrise is on expedition in Antarctic waters. It has been there and it's still down there. And the first tour leg in January focused mainly on the exploration and the scientific research of the seabed in the northern part of the Weddell Sea, as well as the area west of the Antarctic Peninsula. It was our aim, together with Susanne and also Javier, to identify seabed structure and marine fauna down there, which clearly indicates the presence of so-called vulnerable marine ecosystems. This is a term that you will get introduced also by Susanne. These are very special marine ecosystem structures that ask for protection. And for this purpose, our team, led by Susanne Lockhart, used a submarine, a manned submersible, to collect high-resolution video data and biological samples at the seabed. It was an honor to be part of this expedition, and I think now it's a perfect moment to hand over to Susanne, who will now present some of the preliminary insights and findings, and tell about what we found down there underwater.
Okay. Let's see. Right, so a little bit of background about the vulnerable marine ecosystems and what they are. It's a term that was begun by the United Nations as an UNGA resolution, that they should be, VMEs as we call them, should be identified in the high seas and given protection from commercial bottom fishing gear. So what makes a VME? Kamler, the commission that manages Antarctic waters, got together and defined what they thought a VME was for the Antarctic region, and that is a seabed and a community with a lot of structure that provides shelter for other animals like fish, but it also provides a substrate for other animals to be on. So having such large organisms is very important to the community as a whole, but also makes it very vulnerable, especially in Antarctica where the water is cold and things grow very slowly. So the process for Kamler's process for registering a VME, and it is actually part of their conservation measures, that if a fishing vessel or a research vessel, or any vessel indeed, encounters evidence of a VME, that they should produce that evidence and submit it to Kamler. So outlined in this schematic is the basic process. So for me, that will be, I have to sit down in front of the footage and quantitatively analyze it. I put together the evidence and I submit it to a working group that is held in the summer in July every year. If I will be there to defend it, hopefully, if I'm on the US delegation. And if that body agrees by consensus for it to be a VME, then that goes to the October meetings, which we already spoke about. And from there, if they get into the registry, they get a small amount of protection, 1 nautical mile squared. Thank you. And then they can be used to inform and support the other MPA proposals. So VMEs that I've registered before, for instance, have been incorporated in mathematical models that are being used to create and generate high priority areas for the Antarctic Peninsula proposal, which is submitted by Argentina and Chile. So they get small, immediate, quick protection, but they can make a big difference to the production of the MPAs. Right. So I'll go over this quickly. This was more for the other audience with more scientists, but and Sandra already went through some. So a two-person dual submarine we used. We went down, we were sent on a blind transect in that it was picked from the surface what heading we would go. We could measure what we see. I can quantitatively measure it by having two beams there. And then you do the next one. We had the robotic arm that you could see there. That's great. That collects painstakingly, very carefully, collecting each specimen that's then put in the basket. So I chose the sites based on interest in bathymetry. I was particularly interested in bathymetry that you would never put a trawl down in. Usually with trawl gear and other expensive equipment, you want a flat ground, but we were able to dive in sheer steep walls and see what lived there. So that was very exciting for me. But what actual dives we did was very much determined by the sea conditions, the ice conditions. So the Weddell Sea was, or at least into the MPA planning domain, that is for the Weddell Sea proposal, was completely iced in. It wasn't even just a case that it wasn't safe to dive, but our ship, although ice strengthened, couldn't go there. Huge icebergs and very iced in. But we got to go to some exciting places. Yes, thank you, the map. The little green stars there show our 8 successful dive sites. So we dived around the tip of the peninsula, close in the Antarctic Sound, close to the Weddell Sea, and also down into the Gerlach Strait. And the Gerlach Strait is famous. That's where the tourists concentrate. That's where the krill concentrate. That's where, therefore, the whales concentrate, and also the krill fishery is concentrated there. So to make sure that this proposal goes through, it's very important to have as much science in there to inform it and support it as possible. So we really want it not just to go through, but to go through with the greatest amount of protection and have the best MPA proposal set up that we possibly can. Okay, next. All right, so we have the movie now here. Oh.
That's a bit fast.
Can we put the lights off?
Yeah, can you see that okay?
At least we have the mirror.
Yes, it's why I'm staring straight ahead so that I can try to explain. It was a story that I told the scientists this morning while we were talking with the politicians, was that I found one of the experiences I found really amazing on board was having worked down there for so many years and seeing a lot of these animals before. The first dives, I was full scientist, which is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to use a critical and experienced eye and unbiased eye. But watching some of the others, including marine biologists Sandra and John Hossafar, but also Javier, and the 2 journalists that got to go down, seeing their faces and the wonder, and it really made me stop and disconnect a little bit from the scientist and go, wow, yeah, that's right. It's really, I love this place, and it feels like home. But sometimes just that wonder and reminding yourself that what it's like to see it for the first time. Because really, if you think of any scuba divers here, you don't get a lot of places with this kind of high density and great abundance. The diversity and the color really surprises people, just how many different colors and corals that live in such cold waters. So for VME, there are indicator organisms, so I quantify those when I look at the footage and getting the imagery that really shows that the abundance and density continues for quite a distance is important imagery to show the scientists at CCAMLR. And every member country that is present at that working group has to agree to my evidence by consensus. So that is not always easy. And likewise with the meetings in October with the MPAs, every member country has to agree by consensus, which is why sometimes these MPA proposals can take years to negotiate and get through.
Ganz kurzer Zwischenruf für diejenigen von Ihnen, die mit MPA nichts anfangen können. Das ist eine Marine Protected Area, also letztendlich ein anderer Begriff, ein technischer Begriff für ein Meeresschutzgebiet. Und die Indikatoren dafür sind natürlich jetzt in diesem Fall ganz stark, dass es um besonders fragile, sehr komplexe Strukturen geht mit einer mit einer hohen Anzahl an unterschiedlichen Meerestieren. Wir sehen übrigens nur Tiere hier. Das sind keine Pflanzen, auch wenn es aussieht wie blühende Gärten. Es sind ausschließlich Meerestiere, die ein ganz komplexes, dreidimensionales Lebensraum auf dem Meeresgrund bilden und damit auch ein Zuhause für viele weitere Lebewesen, also zum Beispiel Laichgründe, Futtergründe, Rückzugsmöglichkeiten und dergleichen, Kinderstube. Das sind wenige von vielen Gründen, die dafür sprechen, das zu einem Schutzgebiet zu machen.
So what we hope once I get through the working group phase and have the VMEs accepted by the countries that are there, so that it will go to the scientific committee for agree by consensus there. But in the meantime, once they've passed that level, then the coordinates and sites are available to incorporate into the marine proposals that will be submitted in October. So the Argentinians and Chileans will add these VMEs to their mathematical models and therefore strengthen their areas. Even if it's an area where their model is already strong, the more science you have there, the less likely another country will be able to negotiate down or water down the protection for those areas. So we're very excited about the potential VMEs that we've found, and so are the Argentinians and Chileans. So for the Weddell Sea, we believe that this expedition was a great success as well. It shows how important it is to study the seabed in this way, and that it can be very successful this way. It doesn't have to be by trawling and damaging the bottom. The fish trawls that we've done before in the sampling, it can be quite destructive. And although it's much easier to have specimens to study by doing it that way, the robotic arm on a submarine is not that easy to use, and there's lots of things it simply cannot collect. But that as a community as a whole, we get enough high resolution that you can identify species and put it out there for the rest of the world to see just how amazing it is, and hopefully get people excited. So we're pretty happy with the results. And yes, thank you to Greenpeace for inviting me and allowing me to continue doing my research in such an exciting manner in the submarine.
Yeah, many thanks for your insights. To get a better impression now about the whole scenery, we'll watch the preview now of the documentary.
But can we hold on. This is a Berlin Film Festival.
Yeah.
Can we put the lights off?
Könnte man das Licht eventuell ausschalten? Wir sind ja bei der
It will
Berlinale.
make a big difference.
Yes.
Das würde wirklich einen Unterschied machen.
I think it seems a lot lighter here than it's...
Yeah?
Yeah.
No? Yes? No?
At the other venue, he's got a big dark.
Is there anybody?
Gibt es jemanden vom Haus, der das Licht ausmachen könnte?
They're asking, I think.
Sieht nicht so aus. Yeah. We have to go. Yeah. Okay.
I see.
Können Sie den Bildschirm gut
But
sehen?
I'm,
oder?
Yeah, let's start.
okay. I'm seeing some lights being turned. The Antarctic Ocean is one of the last virgin expanses on the planet. Its depths are an unexplored final frontier, an ocean full of life, of biodiversity, essential for the health of the planet and our viability as a species. I went there to try to get to know its beauty, its importance, its fragility, and the urgent need for us all to come together to protect it, just like we did in the 80s with the frozen land mass of Antarctica. In this video, I invite you to accompany me on a journey through the Antarctic Ocean and to learn some facts that will help us understand what we are gambling with as a species, and why this place is so important, in case its beauty alone is not enough.
It is amazing. There's an iceberg there that has the most beautiful shape I've ever seen. It's like a cave of ice, and we are gonna get close to it, I think.
A few hours ago, we sighted seals and whales navigating among the icebergs in Sierra Cove. Our jaws dropped, and we were speechless at the sight of these extraordinary castles and cathedrals the wind and water have carved from the blue ice. We were amazed by the dull cracking sound they make as they break apart, which can be heard from far away in the overwhelming silence of Antarctica. I've traveled a lot. I've been to marvelous corners of the planet, and I have witnessed humanity's history through its art and architecture. But nothing has ever moved me as much as the artwork made by nature herself. Floating, fearless, alive, crackling, constantly changing. What I saw here surpasses anything else. Others have explained to me clearly the geological, climatic, atmospheric, and biological processes that come together here to create these palaces and sculptures of ice. And yet, there is something in this silence and this immensity that speaks directly to your soul and brings you into conversation with yourself, asking that this be protected, that it be protected from us. Because there is in this landscape a voice underground, a cry in the wind that tells us this is not our place. This is not a place for man, but a place to be studied, documented, protected. Human activity is the origin of many environmental and climatic problems, and that means it is the human conscience that must come together, take responsibility, and look for a solution. Emotions are powerful, and they often lead to action. Positive emotions should lead to positive actions.
Es estar en conexión con la naturaleza en su máxima expresión, ¿no? La ballena, el animal más grande del mundo, tener 12 alrededor, ver cómo comen el krill, dando vueltas, creando burbujas para traerlo a la superficie, la relación que tiene eso con los demás animales, los pájaros. Estoy a punto de meterme en un bicho pequeñísimo que apenas quepo. Menos mal que voy con John. John is the bus driver. Como dice Jeff, menos de 50 personas, dice él, han buceado en estos mares con un submarino. Ser uno de esos, pues es un privilegio, vamos. Increíble, ¿no? Hay que protegerlo, ¿no? Es que no se puede no proteger esa maravilla. La sorpresa del fondo marino, ¿no? De la vida. No pensaba que en un sitio así hubiese tanta vida debajo de estas aguas, ¿no? Tanto color. Es impresionante. Es impresionante.
Without protection, industrial fishing crews will have access to these waters. One of their goals is to come through with enormous nets and suck up krill by the ton. This small crustacean is the base of the entire Antarctic food chain. Here, everything eats krill, or eats something that eats krill. Without krill, everything is done for. The sanctuary would prevent industry from robbing the basic food source of penguins, birds, and whales, and would relieve the pressure on populations so these creatures could recover.
Hemos subido arriba de la montaña y detrás tenemos a los chin strap penguins, que son los pingüinos de mancha, tienen raya en la barbilla. Y estamos aquí sin molestar porque están con sus bebés. Y creo que hay uno que se acerca. Qué maravilla.
More than 300,000 pairs of Antarctic petrels raise their young on the coasts of this potential sanctuary. 1/3 of all emperor penguins are born on ice floes in these waters. To date, 6 species of seals and 12 species of whales have been documented in this zone. Sanctuary status would protect them from man so they could feed and reproduce. These species, and many others, are suffering the impact of climate change, contamination, and overfishing. Marine sanctuaries would permit them to recover. The scientific community is beginning to understand now the role that healthy oceans play in the absorption of carbon and how they help keep climate change in check. Sanctuaries don't only protect biodiversity, they also assure food security for billions of people who depend on the seas. A healthy ocean is one of the greatest defenses against climate change. There is evidence that krill help capture surface carbon and deposit it deep on the ocean floor. If we do not come together in October 2018 to create the Antarctic Sanctuary, we will also lose faith in the ability of national governments to protect the oceans. Why should we celebrate the Antarctic Treaty if the 24 member states of the European Union can come together? Let's make this the first of many ocean sanctuaries. Let it be an international judicial precedent applicable to many other marine environments. The eyes of millions of citizens of the world are on us. Here, in the Antarctic Ocean, we are gambling our future, nothing less than the future of humanity. And as we've repeated many times these days, there is no plan B, because there is no planet B. Now is the time to act. Thank you for that. So, should I speak?
Please.
Hello. So, what can I add to that? I guess the answer is, among many experts, Sandra and Susanne and many others, that they were experts on their own craft in that Arctic sunrise ship. Why there was an actor there? Well, we were filming. We are filming still. Today we are filming a documentary about many things, but especially about how to conceive a global idea on protecting, on raising an awareness, on raising a campaign to protect an ocean, and why we should do that. But mostly, I was there as a citizen, as one of you, and see that with your eyes, the eyes of someone that doesn't know and didn't know anything about this, and should we care? And it was 7 days on the boat, and many things happened. First of all, the most emotional thing was to see and to be surrounded by the crew, by the people who are fighting and serving as guards of our home, this planet, in the name of the planet, in the name of us. And they are sacrificing their lives, they are sacrificing their times, their families for that. And that's very brave, that's heroic, and that's the people from Greenpeace. But also it was an expedition of seeing nature by itself, seeing nature as wild as you can see, and as untouchable as you can imagine. Virgin from us, from the hand of the most destroyers of all, which is mankind. It was virgin, it was there, it was the sound of the whales among the silence of the Antarctic. It was something that I will never forget. It's like, this thought came to my mind saying, I guess in the prehistoric times, this would be what our ancestors were witnessing, the silence and the animals speaking. And what I try to realize is, I'm 49 in 3 weeks, I have 2 kids, and we cannot let this beautiful world that we have, and the only one we have, die. And they explained to me why, if we don't start protecting the oceans now, starting with the Antarctic Ocean, why in a very near future the planet will suffer tremendously. So there is no need to be a scientist to understand that how important that is, and how much responsibility we have for our children, grandchildren, because they will look at us and they will say, why didn't you do anything about it? And of course, we all can do, and we all should do something individually. Recycle, blah, blah, blah. It's important. But we need leaders, we need governments, we need people that really make the difference, can create difference, make that difference, and guide us through the change. And that's why we are all here. And we raised altogether more than 1 million signatures. In less than a month, which is a good number of people all around the world supporting the cause, and we are asking you to sign in greenpeace.org to protect the Antarctic, because those signatures matter. It will be on the politicians' shoulders when they take the decision. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Javier. Okay, now we have about 10 minutes for questions. German or English, everything's fine. Sorry, could we get the microphone?
It's a question mostly to Greenpeace, probably. Let me just play devil's advocate. If you go on the side of the CCLMR, and if you trust in the Atlantic Treaty, why is it so important? Like, why can't we just trust in them making the right decision in October? It looks all very positive and optimistic.
Well, I think I will take that question from you. I mean, it is, of course, something to be optimistic about, first of all, and we are all very happy that the German government, with the help of the EU, put forward that proposal. But it's not done by just tabling a proposal and hoping that everybody would agree, because actually we all know there's geopolitics involved usually. There's not only scientific facts involved, there's a lot of geopolitics involved and economic interests down there. Economic interests, what does that mean? It means mainly industrial fishing for toothfish, for krill, and even expansion plans are already in the making. So it's not something that is a sideline fishery. It's I mean, extensive fishing going on and extensive fishing being planned for the future. And as we've already seen in the Arctic, with ice cover retreating, also different governments are planning to move forward with industrial exploitation of natural resources in the ocean. This is fishing, but this is also digging up really important ore and minerals from the seabed, oil and gas extraction and things like that. So right now we only have industrial fishing going on, and it is very important to advocate for the sanctuary now, that we still have the time to make that difference and to protect that region before industrial exploitation can even start. But this is not just done by sitting there and waiting for it to happen. It involves active diplomacy and advocacy, because there's a lot of geopolitics involved. And of course, this is linked to economic interests. And so all the international community of states need to make sure that this is a common agreement. And this is what we're advocating for and fighting for.
Yes. And I can add to that. The Ross Sea MPA that went through, that took 10 years of negotiation to come about. And in 10 years, countries can say no until and then go through 10 years of negotiation to water down the original protection that was put in. Yeah. So it's not just about getting the quickest MPA passed and getting it passed this October. It's about getting the strongest proposal, the best protection, and having the best scientific evidence behind that, so that in the negotiations, which will come and get heated, it doesn't get easily watered down. So the more scientific evidence you have and the more attention you put on the politicians, then if they know people are watching, then it makes them harder to, they have to explain themselves if they're letting the protection get watered down. In every proposal there are different levels of protection. So that is really important. It's not just the size of the MPA, and when it gets done, it really has to be a good MPA, and that requires as much science in it as possible, and also as much attention as possible.
Do you mind naming some of those players you're up against? In terms of companies or in terms of governments?
Since I'm not officially in camera, I've participated on the US delegation at the working meetings, but I wouldn't feel right in saying that because I'm not a part of camera directly.
Hi, I'm Salvador Martinez from the Spanish newspaper El Español. I have a question for Javier Bardem. You just said that we need governments in our side to do this marvelous objective that is protecting the Antarctic. I would like to ask you to what extent Donald Trump's environmental politics have an impact on the Antarctic today.
I can only say, as someone that is watching the reality show he's going through in the White House, I don't know about the facts. They may help me with that. But a president of such a powerful nation giving the back to the Paris Treaty and, of course, in a constant denial of the climate change is not good. It doesn't help. Now, somebody said the other day to me something that I think is very wise. The fact that he's against that makes more people on board of our cause. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you see him doing something, just do the opposite, and you'll be right.
Would anyone like a translation? Okay, then here. Next question, please.
Hello, I'm Susanne Lockhart from BZ. I also have a question to Javier Bardem. So the thing is, you dived into the deep, 270 meters. What kept you calm in the depth? Because I mean, how do you prepare? How do you keep calm?
Nothing. It's a very amazing machine, right? I didn't feel any pressure. I felt more pressure on the ears when you take a plane. And actually there was a moment where I was feeling sleepy. And I spoke to John, John is the as they call it, the giant, what? The
pilot.
Underwater. Yeah. And I asked him, do I have the right amount of oxygen in my cabin? Because I'm feeling sleepy. And he said, no, you are relaxed, because it's like meditating. And it is true. It was so relaxing to be down there in the darkness, because it's pure dark, except for the lights that are facing those, lining those elements on the floor, that life on the floor. But it was 2 hours something long length, and I felt super relaxed, and I was totally confident on John as the pilot and the people who were helping us from the surface. So I didn't have any moment. Only 1 second when the water was covering the whole thing, and I looked up, and it was long. It was a long distance till the surface. There was a moment there where I was like, but I felt like, don't think about it, just enjoy it, and it was fine.
If I may add, we had a very professional team on board.
Yes.
We got trained in advance. We got to sit in the submarine before. We knew exactly what we were surrounded by, all these instruments and all these things to look at and switches, but we knew exactly what to do if we're down there and what to look out for. And so the preparation phase was almost as important as the dive itself, and I think you managed greatly.
Yeah, I was basically trained to not touch anything. Thank God I did.
There is another question.
Hello, Susanne Götze, freelance journalist. I wanted to ask about the role of Chile and Argentina, because they're next countries, and which influence they have politically concerning the protected area, or potentially protected area.
I believe the lead has been taken by the Argentinians in that proposal. But they are working with the Chileans, and it's great to see, that they're working together and putting it together. Yes, but they also have economic interests in the tourism there, I believe, as well, and getting the protections. Yes, in fact, my husband was down when we were down on a Chilean fishing vessel doing some fish stock assessments. So they do have a lot of commercial interests, but they're also very interested in protecting the area. It's so close to them, and it affects the health of that area, and will obviously affect the health of the South American oceans as well.
They're even involved in krill fishing down there, Chileans at least, but this is then a perfect, or let's say a good example of protecting and exploiting in a managed way. At least they're an example that both is possible, and that commercial interests should not necessarily mean blocking every protection measure on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 2 last questions here.
Hello, I'm Holger Dambeck from Spiegel Online. One question to Javier Bardem. What brought you to the Antarctic? What was the reason, especially for this area? Yeah, but why are you engaged?
Well, I've been how do you say, socio partner, member of the Greenpeace organization for many years, and my brother had the privilege to be in the Arctic 4 years ago. And when they called me and asked for my collaboration with them, I didn't think about it twice. I was like, yes, but I didn't know anything about it. That's why I said before it was like a normal citizen's eyes point of view, like, okay, what's all this about? Why it's so important? And then I went very open-minded to this boat to see what was all this about, and I learned through every day by seeing them going down on the expeditions and getting samples and hearing stories, and of course being there witnessing the landscape and the animals. I learned the importance of it. So it was not a difficult task to be there. It's tough. It's tough to be in a boat for me. It's funny because I did Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, right. I mean, when you are on a boat for real, I was like vomiting nonstop. And then because of the Drake Pass. No, not the Drake.
The Drake Passage.
The Drake Passage, but it was not the Drake, it was before the Drake.
It
was even before the one that is tough.
The Straits of Magellan.
In the mellow one, I was spooking, so.
But you were the same pallor as your character.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So
that's true. And the real sailors were pointing at me like, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, right? So, yeah, but it was an amazing experience to be there and to be in that submarine. It's something that I will never forget. And of course, there is nothing more that I can do that to produce and put the movie together and be here with you, which I thank you for your time and your attention to bring awareness to it and raise the awareness out there so people can join us.
One short last question, anyone?
I just would like to ask Greenpeace, does it work, this kind of campaigning, bringing Javier Bardem on board, now David Harbour?
I would say yes, without thinking, no doubt about it. And I mean, it proves us right already. I mean, we have more than 1 million signatures in a record time. And of course, we're trying to communicate to different audiences out there. We need to touch people's hearts, but we also need to convince people with facts and arguments. And we're trying to find the best combination to do that. That is one of the reasons why Javier is with us and why Susanne is with us. We need scientific basis and we need also emotions. This combination is a good mix for us. And of course, different VIPs have different approaches, and one might do it in a funny way, one might do it in a more serious and really concerned way like Javier. And of course we're trying out things, but for us we couldn't have asked for a better ambassador.
Thank you.
For our campaign.
I love penguins, that's all.
It also, just to give you a very, very fresh impression, we've just been at the House of Parliament and meeting with members of the German Bundestag. Yeah. And hosted by the Greens, by Steffi Lemke. And we've been showing some of our data and showing also this movie very informally to some of the scientists and some of the members of Parliament. And already there was the impression and the gut feeling in the room, I must say. I'm not saying names who gave me that feeling, but that there is something moving now. And what I can say is that Greenpeace is greatly welcoming the German government's proposal put forward by the EU and all the support that the EU is putting in. We have Seppo Nurmi here from the EU Commission standing in the background, but he has a great, great deal of responsibility for this. And even though Greenpeace and the German and other governments might not always be of the same opinion, in this case we're sitting in the same boat and we have the same goal to make this proposal as strong as any possible. And if the Greenpeace share is to bring more people on board and bring emotions on board and not just have this proposal being discussed behind closed doors and being watered down without the world knowing and seeing this, yeah, then we've obviously helped it and given birth to it, hopefully. So let's see and cross fingers.
Mm-hmm.
I think it definitely makes a big difference to some countries, this attention. Some will say no and put their foot down and wait for it to be watered down. But there are other countries with huge interests that would rather weaker protection, but really don't want to be lumped with the other countries. And this kind of public attention just, yeah, it makes a difference to those countries, very much so.
Thank you all. Thanks for your questions. And thanks for coming today. Thanks for following us online. And yeah, vielen Dank. Einen schönen Tag.
Bye. Thank you.